Yes, good afternoon. Hello, everybody. This is actually good lunchtime. If here in the chat, if you could let me know how many of you are in here, just say hello and where you're coming from. My name is Hector Bojorquez. I'm Director of Operations at IDRA. These sessions, these kind of gallery walkthroughs, the way they're designed really is for almost a Q&A where we can present to you what IDRA can do for your organization. But also just as a Q&A, if you have any questions about what your needs are and how IDRA can help. Right now, we're discussing most emergent bilingual supports. When we discuss emergent bilingual supports, what we're really talking about is English language learners, and that is the usual language that we had used for many years around this issue. However, what we've noticed across the space of time, English learner really kind of put our students in a strange situation at a deficit, as if their lack of knowing English was a deficit. Now, obviously, all of our bilingual education efforts and all of our English learner efforts are to get them to learn English, but we do not see their lack of learning English, their lack of knowing English, as a deficit, but rather that they are working towards becoming bilingual. Thus, we have changed the language here to be emergent bilingual. And at IDRA, we not only support emergent bilingual learners through the EAC-South, but we also support them through many of our other services. So that's just kind of in a nutshell just what we mean by emergent bilingual supports. I see one person, hello, from India, an early childhood educator. Nice to meet you. We'd like to see how many other people are coming on. So since this is a kind of a session where it's almost like imagine like in the exhibition days where you'd have an exhibitor hall. This is very similar to that, where we will just have kind of an open discussion about what IDRA can do for you. We also have somebody, Gabriela Sanchez, and excuse me if I butcher names, Kilorin from UTSA. Nice to meet you. And we have Laura, Dr. Green. Yes, I know. Hello, how are you doing? And Priyanka Pridarshini. If I just totally butchered that, I'm sorry. Thank you. So people butcher my last name all the time, Bojorquez. So one of the things that IDRA likes to do when we approach any situation having to do with bilingual learners is first to do a contextual analysis, say, of a district. So if a district is having emergent bilingual issues that they need to address, one of the first things that we do is ask them, can we look at your data and what data is available to you? Here's Nora Garcia from B Partners in Conroe, Texas. Nice to meet you. So we look at your data, your outcome data. It's usually in Texas, it's usually disaggregated by race, ethnicity, and language learner status. In this case, emergent bilingual status. So that is important for us to look at, just that data. Then we look at data down at the campus level, as far as how students, what the processes are when they come in from to get registered, as far as the home language surveys, to see where they're going to be basically placed. Those are some of the bare minimums as far as bureaucracy that needs to happen at schools where you do work, and we look at that to make sure that all those things are happening. And then we look to see what program in your study you're actually doing. And these are the kind of context analysis, learning, language learning, equity audits that we help you with, in order to see where there are any issues that you need to address, be they in the kind of documentation pieces, in the language learning pieces, and the pedagogy pieces. And then we can provide everything. We're able to provide everything from direct professional development that happens on either online or on-site, or we're also able to do coaching and mentoring. So we're able to provide all of those things for you. We have lots of different ways to do this. If you look at, we have handouts in this case you see our, on the handouts page, you'll see a English learner literacy coaching services. That's an example of some of the way we provide services for English language learners. And excuse me, we're making the transition to say calling emergent bilinguals. So I've been around in education since the 90s, so I still say English language learners. So so if you look at that real quick, go to the handouts, and you can see the not creating more bilingual Texas. What I want everybody to look at is the literacy coaching flyer, just to take a look at that first. And actually, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and share my screen so you can see that. If you're able to see my screen, please say yes, where it says English learner English learner literacy coaching services. And I'm going to turn my camera off so you can see it a little bit better. So in the chat, just give me a thumbs up that you can see that. So I'd like for you to just take a look at that. You can, like I said, you can see it on there. Now, these are the services we can provide. Now, there are two ways we can provide these services. We can provide these services to your district or to your campus free of charge if there is an equity concern at your district and you wish for us to go in and review that. So if you're seeing that there's some equity concerns, you can call us up, and some of these services can be provided free of charge, and that's within our in our service area in the 12 states. We can provide that. We can also provide assistance in our outside of the EAC service area for free. And this right here, this particular model that I'm showing you, are just our coaching services. Right now, what we're noticing is that professional development for these has changed substantially. There is less of an emphasis on seeing basically pull-out programs where we pull teachers out to a more job-embedded emphasis. And that's what we're trying to do most of the time now. And right now, during this remote, while we're still doing some remote learning or halfway remote learning, we're able to do kind of a hybrid approach. We can do some remote learning online, and we can do then some on-site work depending on the situation. I know that you all are looking at this, so I'm going to stop sharing it real quick, and I'm going to go back so you can see me. Hopefully you can see me. There you go. So, are there any questions so far about what the sort of things we can do? Because this is very much like I said, kind of a Q&A sort of session where you're able to, if you want to spend some time here, you can also spend some time going to the other sessions. Any questions right now? How about I ask one of you, Gabriela Sanchez, if you're still here, if you could type in your chat what your situation is, followed by Rosario Quiroz Villarreal, if you could type in the chat what your situation is and what sort of services you have questions about as far as emergent bilingual supports. Because after this, I'm going to go a little bit more into some of the legal issues concerning emergent bilinguals. So I'll give you a minute to put that in the chat. Okay, we have here at TMTP, we support districts throughout the U.S. and are looking to strengthen and support some emerging bilinguals. It's great to know that this service is available to districts. Thank you. This is one of the. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to point out something about these sorts of services and why they're part of the IDRA EAC-South. The four protected classes are race, national origin. Race, national origin, gender, and religion. National language falls under national origin, and that's been the case since 1964, when the Civil Rights Act of 1964 basically came up with the protected classes, and also came up with the idea that the federal government should assist these, and the Equity Assistance Center should assist districts in need. So that's why we're able to provide this assistance through federal grant. We're able to do it in kind of a very broad packages of assistance, or so if you have multi-year needs, we can provide that, to smaller packages of assistance. And here, she asked, what would be the process? Rosario Quiroz Vieira asked, what would be the process for connecting you when we see these concerns? So, for example, if you need to, if you're at a district level, or you're with districts, what you need to do is get a superintendent or a school board to write a letter requesting services. A very simple letter. It does not have to be a complicated letter. It has to be a very, very simple letter talking about what we can do. So that's, and it's. It can be a page-long letter. Then we basically call each other and sit down and see what are the sorts of programs or the sort of assistance that we can do. And that's very simple. You just call us up, and it's usually either me or I'm going to put my email on here, or Dr. Paula Johnson, who is the director. There we go. And I see that somebody is turning on their camera there for a second. Okay, so do you have does that make sense there? You can email either one of us, and with that letter, and then you can help you come up either how to talk to a superintendent that you need to work with, etc., or with a school board. And here, the next question from Dr. Green, I think. I've been trying to assist AISD with their dual language program, including working with a subcommittee that is trying to encourage African American students' participation in dual language. I like aspects of dual language, which is how I was educated myself in Venezuela, but have concerns about how Anglo parents tend to take over and divert support away from emergent bilinguals. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Green. That is a very good point, and that's something that I'm glad you brought up. Dual language is basically spreading throughout Texas and throughout parts of the country, not as an alternative to bilingual education as we know it in Texas, but as a way of implementing bilingual education programs. Not necessarily as an alternative, but just as another way of implementing bilingual education. And in dual language, as you know, what happens is you're trying to teach as many students as possible, or all students in the campus, both languages, both the target language, which is English, and a second language, which for our emergent bilinguals that are who were the original targets of bilingual education, it depends where they come from. Can be anything, any other, quite a few other languages. In Texas, it tends to be overwhelmingly Spanish, but there's places in Houston, Dallas, where there's multiple languages. And in the past, bilingual education would concentrate on making sure that those learners were getting their first language strengthened in order to learn the second language, to get a very solid foundation. the problem that Dr. Green is bringing up is that there's been implementations of dual language where the dual language program itself is almost an enrichment rather than the civil right that bilingual education is. Bilingual education for students who are coming in without knowing English is a civil right. That it is a civil right, and it's not it's not an optional enrichment. It is a civil right. Court cases have been fought over this. There's been legislation. The original legislation came out in 1967 with President Johnson coming up with Title VII, which was the bilingual education rights act. Then during the 70s, there were court cases because the federal guidance wasn't enough, and there was court cases that came out of that. There was the Lau v. Nichols case, and in that case, we really needed to have people understand that this is a civil rights, that you were violating student civil rights if you weren't giving them comprehensible input, comprehensible education in their first language as they were learning the second language. And the Supreme Court and ensuing, there was something called the Lau remedies, and those Lau remedies are civil rights that we're supposed to follow. And what happens, what a lot of us fear, is that it hasn't worked out the way we thought it would work out with dual language. With bilingual education, we had quite a bit of success, but for some people it was a little bit politically problematic to try to implement bilingual education the way we saw it, or it was too expensive. So I think as a somewhat of a compromise, people started doing a dual language, which there is nothing wrong with dual language. There's many ways that all of us have seen dual language and be very good at it. We see very good implementations, but at the same time, we're seeing possibilities where, rather than being the tool for correcting certain civil rights issues, it becomes an enrichment, where students, those either Anglo students are getting Spanish as an enrichment, or getting some of these other languages as an enrichment, rather than those either Spanish, Vietnamese, or Mandarin students they're coming in learning English. They're not getting the full support because so much support is going into this kind of dual language. The pedagogies are different, and there's also differences in how things are implemented at a local level, and we must all really be vigilant about that. So when we see dual language programs immediately, we shouldn't be immediately think, oh, this is great. We really should ask ourselves, is it treating the kids who bilingual education was originally meant for equitably and with excellent education, with excellent language education? Let me see. There's another question here. Let me get to it. Yes, Ms. Villarreal, do all EACs offer these types of supports? And wondering, is there any case study of a district you've worked with that you could share about what services look like in practice? We have several kinds of case studies around these sorts of issues, and for all EACs do offer these types of supports to one extent or another. Some EACs will serve language learning like this, but they may not do as much professional development as we offer. You can ask your EAC, but they most certainly do offer it. We tend to offer a lot more in English language learning because we have a lot to offer, and we've had a long history of offering English language emerging bilingual supports over a 30-year period. Actually, 40-year period. So what this looks like, let's say with emerging bilinguals, what it looks like, a case that I can think of right off the top of my head is one district who had the need for basically close to 2,000 teachers to receive online, first online professional development. I want to say about 25 to 30 hours of online professional development. We helped about 2,500 teachers receive that online professional development, and like I said, they received about 25 hours each. Then we've started, that same district is now receiving one-to-one remote coaching about how to implement some of the strategies and programs that we talked to them about, that they got in their online courses. So that's one example. Right now, we're serving, I want to say that over 3 years, we've served probably 3,000 teachers on Spark with online asynchronous classes. And we've also served close to 400 hours of remote not face-to-face, but remote one-on-one coaching and mentoring. So that's a very intensive sort of work that we've done. Very, very intensive work that we did with that district. That's not the only support we've received. We've given, it was with English language learners. With some others, some of the districts asked us basically to do just the context analysis. And the context analysis basically had us look at their data, which was simple enough to look at their data and then kind of give them an analysis of what the data said about their English language learners, but also about their, we did focus groups with families and students and teachers to find out if there were other equity gaps concerning the practices themselves that they were doing. So that was another district that we did. Now, because I'm kind of redacting myself of the names of the districts because we speak of them anonymously unless they give us permission. So that's two examples of that under English language learners. But we give other kinds of assistance, and I wanted to bring this up just in case you don't hear this from some of my colleagues in the other gallery walks. We also do similar things where we just do a whole district equity audit. And a whole district equity audit it's very extensive, and we do that as well. We've done professional development concerning, say, for example, restorative justice across a whole district again. Everybody from the teachers, the clerical staff, to even the bus drivers, that they all get, for example, implicit bias training. Then some of our very interesting cases where we go and look at a district's data as with disproportionate discipline rates. We look at their data and we basically track down and give them a root cause analysis of where this is coming from, and it can be anywhere from something that's written in their policy books, their handouts, to practices and things that are happening in their classroom that they're not aware of, to to implicit and explicit biases that are happening on their campuses. And we help them to provide different either provide them the recommendations and then help them with those recommendations, or actually provide them professional development with restorative justice in some of those cases. So that's kind of, we do all those things for different types of services here. And I wanted to make sure that you understood that we can provide that for all of those. And again, when you asked if all the EACs offer these types of supports, yes, they usually do. There's usually some difference. There may be some differences in some of those. Do you provide assistance on policy at the state level that may be resulting in equitable practices, i.e. with funding with ELs or emergent bilinguals? We can provide assistance as far as, again, examining we have provided state agency level professional development, well, I'm sorry, not professional, but technical assistance on some of these issues. And on state agency, it all depends on what kind of assistance they're really, really looking for. Obviously, when it comes to funding situations, we can provide some of the recommendations as to what should be happening. We can provide that, and honestly, what I'm seeing from the Biden administration is that the Biden administration would like for us to point those things out even more so, because different kinds of monies will be coming in to help with that. So yes, we can provide that. Now, the reason if you hear me kind of hesitating or hemming a little bit is because just because we can provide those recommendations to some state agencies doesn't mean that they're going to take it. And so it all depends. Now, we do provide state agency level assistance on a range of other things. Everything from we recently provided one state with helping them. We facilitated a rewriting of their state standards to include basically African American history. So we facilitated the rewriting of those standards. We did not rewrite them for them, but we helped provide certain frameworks and facilitated the discussions. And that was a state level endeavor at their request. Another state level endeavor another endeavor at a state level request had to do with family engagement, and family engagement dealing with with emergent bilingual families. And that was very interesting because we basically brought together close to 60 groups and had them provide the information using our own methodology in order for the state level to create a new family engagement protocols and frameworks. And that was also a very successful statewide assistance that we provided. So kind of in a nutshell, yes, we do provide a statewide policy that way, statewide assistance on that level. Now, whether they listen to recommendations about something like funding, it all depends. But thank you so much for that. I'm gonna totally call you to see where we can assist you. We're very happy to assist you. Trust me. We don't. The only time that thank you. The only time that we're not able to provide assistance is if it's a very individual sort of problem. That's the only time that I've noticed that we can't provide assistance. And when I mean very individual, is like one student or one parent who has sort of some issues, and we can't provide it at that level. That's the only time. But most of the time, yes, we can. Oh, Dr. Green, no, never mind. Let's see, anybody else in there? Let's see. And these were meant to be very loose. These gallery walks, because this is also your lunch time, and it's time for we can all. These are much more informal than the others. That's why we made them a little bit longer. And I'm going to make sure I plug in some of the other things that we'll be talking about. We will in our other gallery walks. In our other gallery walks, I'll plug it in right now. We'll be, we'll be talking about family engagement with Aurelio Montemayor. He'll be there. And if you didn't catch him today, you can catch him tomorrow. You can also, you can go to data walks and dashboards with Dr. Vasquez. And then tomorrow's will include, give me 1 second. It's a lot. We did so many LGBTQ resources, student advocacy, equity audits, so you can find out what our equity audits are like. And if you did not catch digital equity, you can go back and look at digital equity. That's a very important. There's a lot of information there. And also, I suggest that you look at our IDRA Valued Youth Partnership when you get the chance. It's a very good program. That one, we can provide it through the EAC, but it's also one of our it's one of our kind of for cost services. But I would suggest that you really take a look at that. Dr. Green, can you describe your way of delivering PD to a large number of teachers more completely? Surely. So right now, because of COVID, it has forced us to do lots of different ways, lots of different things. We've created kind of our own hybrid models that are able to take us deeper into a situation. So for example, in the past, when we're very face to face, usually what we do is we'll have one professional development session at the beginning of the year, a tops two, where they're either pulled out or it's on a weekend, or we do it over a series of days in the afternoon. Now, if it's a large number of teachers, say about 150 teachers, we would try to bring 3 to 4 of our staff to go in and do these kind of large groups, and then usually we would have a very interactive professional development within the smaller groups, so that it's not just your traditional sit and gets that we used to get years past. So that we try to build in very interactive professional development, even when we were face to face. Even in the largest groups, we would treat it as if we would want to do it in the classroom. We would maybe have very short, large whole group quote unquote instruction lecture brief that would be hit hard, and then we would break up into smaller groups with the people that we bring on board. This is obviously this, and then following that, what we prefer is to then have job embedded come in once or twice a month to the campuses that went to our training, and go and do either first the model lessons, so that teachers can come in and watch us do a model lesson, one. Then coaching and mentoring sessions that we can do either individually or with groups of teachers, say either in across a grade level, or 2, 3. We also could like to do go back and do as more individual sort of go back and work with teachers individually. Like, say we'd start in the morning and go do about 8 sessions where we go and visit teachers. So we have all of these tactics, and we prefer that we do this once or twice a month, so that whatever it is that we taught at the beginning, we are able to see it throughout the year. And that's our traditional way of doing things. And then at the end of the year, have a wrap-up session. We've all been doing professional development for decades here, and we knew that the old method of having 1 or 2 sessions at the beginning of the year and not helping people sort of do sessions without follow-up was kind of worthless, and it didn't really work. We needed to do some really severe, really serious follow-up, and that follow-up had to be months long if need be. And that was the only way to make sure that there was implementation of anything that we were teaching. And that went for anything, from ELL strategies to project-based learning, all of the things that we kind of been known for. So that was in the past when we were able to do things face to face. We were now, even though we spent this past year and a half doing things remotely, we were a little bit scared that we weren't going to be able to do those things. Thankfully, surprisingly, remotely allowed us to continue doing that, because it would made it easier for us to do those some of those sessions. People have gotten so adept at using Zoom and at using any of these platforms that we could pick up and basically set a time with a group of teachers and say, okay, we should probably have a debriefing session about what happened in your classrooms today, and we can give you tips on how to make things better, or we can go back and do a small book reading. One of the interesting things that this year we've used several Paul Gorski's book about how to teach students experiencing poverty, which was is a really good book. We've also started doing some work with Dr. Duggan's book called Street Data, which is very interesting and very good concerning these issues. And we're about to do some work using Dr. Billings. So we would take, now Zoom has given us the opportunity to actually go in a little bit deeper and a little bit more often. So we're able to do that more in depth. And most of the time, through the EAC, we can provide those services for free, given that they're in the purview and in our region. If it's campuses out of our region that for some reason their EACs don't provide it, our service fee, our fees are very reasonable compared to others. So that we've gotten a lot of compliments about how reasonable our services are. So as far as costs for those that pay for it, but all to say, this is our motto in all this is that we try to adapt ourselves to what the context is. We hold ourselves. The things that we don't adapt is our content and our stands and our beliefs about students and families and equity and excellence. But those are things that we just will never change. Now, the context and how we deliver these things is changing just every other day now. So thank you, Dr. Green. Yes. So Dr. Green asked, are you able to use technology to watch your teachers teach? That's we've had to in that situation. And I just realized I'm not on camera, so you can't see me being gesticulating like I like to. So one of the things that's been kind of an issue that we're working through this year is that because of FERPA laws, districts asked us not to do that, not to basically put students on camera. So it made it kind of difficult for teachers to try to kind of put themselves on there. Now, here's an interesting twist, though. That was an issue when there was like hybrid classrooms, where there was like half of a classroom that was at home and half at school. Those were the ones where we couldn't watch what people were doing. But for classrooms that were overwhelmingly remote, we could go kind of sit in the back and observe. It was very interesting that we were able to then use technology in those situations. That when they were basically going either 80% or 100% remote, that we were invited to go in there, and we could then just see what was going on. So that was interesting. The Zoom actually made that more possible. Now, the unfortunate situation there is that we were able to see that a lot of different there was a lot of different issues where we saw that the pedagogy varied greatly, really, really varied greatly. There was a lot of instructors in certain districts that because of just where they were or the situation they had, they could only give basically a drill and kill on just worksheets. They weren't able to do a lot of really hands-on things online. So that was really very difficult. It was kind of an issue but we saw some people that were trying to do more interesting things that kept more, and when I say that, I mean more highly engaging things. So that was difficult. That part was difficult, unfortunately. So thank you, Dr. Green. Any other folks have any other questions so far? Dr. Green says, my observations of online instruction in Alabama elementary of online instruction in Alabama elementary classrooms, and here in Texas had that problem. Yes, it was very unfortunate. We've seen that just way too much right now. Let's see. How many folks? Are we just having some quiet folks in here? Or are they people to go to lunch? Oh, we have 25. We have 25 invitees, 25 attendees, but y'all aren't talking a lot. Let's see. And do you have any other questions right now? Because it's 12:42, and I might give everybody a 5-minute bio break, since we went almost straight from the other session to this one. No, Dr. Green, I think you weren't dominating. I think that other people are just really shy. Okay, well, go ahead. Okay, I see, Macarena. I really appreciate you mentioning Street Data Book. How do you incorporate this type of approach into your training and ELL training? Well, the one thing about it that we've seen that's very important in that students and families bring in a certain data factor that teachers and the not just teachers but the academic institution does not really understand. So a lot of the way that IDRA has been trying to do that in the past, and when we saw the Street Data Book, we saw a kind of kindred spirit, is that we ask for those we ask for people, for teachers and schools to basically bring in their families. And when we say bring in their families, bring in the families that they haven't usually worked with. Bring them in and let them and have them work on a data project, sort of a project having to do with kind of like their own action research is what we're calling them, and have parents ask other parents of what they feel about what's happening in their classroom, in their ELL, in their emergent bilingual classrooms. And create surveys, for example, around that. We've had lots of success in having families create surveys around that. And then they present those surveys back to the district or the campus or the the district or the campus or the classroom. We had one situation where this happened, where families and students basically collected the information by doing these surveys. And these surveys would then the results of these surveys were presented back to the teachers and to the principals, and that basically they found out things like that there was 40 kids per classroom. One, that was huge. That teachers were unfortunately the students felt bad that the teachers had to basically felt like they had to rush through the textbook at the time. Third, that when they needed tutoring in any of these things, that they went to the afternoon tutoring, and the teachers were basically teaching the same way in the afternoon that they were during the morning, during the day. The principal and the district on this campus then created professional development and tried to change policies in order to fix those things. Now, what I really like about the Street Data Book is that it has very specific sort of guidance and ways to do this. And Dr. Dugan actually was going to present here in at this meeting during this conference, but she wasn't able to. But we're going to bring her on to present for some other sessions. for webinars that IDRA will host, because it's so much like what we think needs to happen. It is aligned with the way we believe that families need to be brought into this. So it was very, very. That's the way we basically do this. What street data talks about. We had Dr. Duggan and I had a very long discussion about that. That this is exactly what is needed in so many places. That initiatives, policies, etc., happen without input from families and communities, and that's just not. It's just not working. And when they do have that input, they're able to have much more authentic education that way. And I think somebody may have a microphone on somewhere. So, Mr. Hernandez, I hope that answered your question, because we can go back and talk about that when we bring back people. Thank you for making an effort to access the positive aspects and values of students' home cultural attribute. I truly believe in involving families into discussion and move away from fixing the issues. Thank you. No, thank you. We the asset-based. We believe that equity can't exist without if it's not asset-based. If otherwise, you're just bringing people in from the outside, telling a community that there's something wrong with them, that they need to fix them. We've seen this too much over time. We know that it's just does not work. So we'd like to make sure that we don't. We've believed this for a long time, and now we see that there are a lot more people out there that are singing this song, and hopefully we can all get together and make the song into a giant choir, because it is this kind of these kind of mentality and deficit-based practices are really delaying any sort of positive work around equity and excellence. We just believe that the kids are broken, and that families are broken, and that's why they're not succeeding. And in truth, it's always been us that need to change. And when I say us, I mean the educational institutions. Any other questions? And thank you, Mr. Macario. And we have still quite a few attendees. We have 27 attendees that haven't talked. So, and somebody else that has some question about what they would like to see, or what they think we might be able to provide them. Okay, so what I'll do next is I'm going to go ahead and ask you to go to your handouts. And in the handouts, I'd like for you to take a look at make sure it comes up. Mis semillitas de aprendizaje. Packet. Let me see if it's coming up for you. And if it's not, I will go ahead and do this. Give me 1 second. Okay. Um, Thank you, Mr. Maraj, Amish Maraj. In Carla Duran, we need to have specific ways that gen ed teachers can help emergent students. Many times teachers mean well, but just don't know how to help ELs. This is true, and I'd rather not speak in generalities as far as to what IDRA can help you with that. But I'd like to just tell you some very specific things that we know are work. Um, And one of the things that obviously has worked along the years and has been proposed time and time again is for teachers who are just your general ed teachers are to become more proficient in the sheltered instruction observation protocol. Now, this was people know this is SIOP, and it's basically become a collection of a lot of the ways that we've known over the years in bilingual education and in other language acquisition in language acquisition in general. That work and put together all under one framework, and it's a good framework. It's a good it's something that's worked in many situations, but I hesitate in saying that that's the only thing that should happen. So I would say this: that if you're in the place where you can advocate for something like a PSYOP to occur, that your teachers, that the system that you're in does not think that is the end-all be-all to help your EL, your English learners, your emergent bilinguals, so that they have a very solid either bilingual program that they're able to do on their either separate from the gen ed teacher, that is there, that they have that foundation, and that then the gen ed teachers do get trained in things like a sheltered instruction protocol. And I gave that as one example because there are others that are emerging right now, and that is one that is one of the more well-known ones. And it does work, but it works best when there is also a basic bilingual education program that everybody that they're doing for all the kids that are English learners. So, for example, let's say that there is one teacher that they have on campus or on each grade level that is their bilingual ed teacher that is giving them comprehensible input, a comprehensible input in those early grades, for example, and that you have the gen ed teachers, the general ed teachers, either in junior high as they go higher, that are also that understand principles of sheltered instruction protocol and understand some of the general principles of excuse me, of English language learner instruction. So they have both of those things as tools that they can use for all students. It is very possible to do. It's just one. We can't have just one. We can't just have PSYOP, for example. We need to be able to have both to help both of the students. Now, if you're in a situation where you can't, or because you're in a state or a district that is only allowing a sheltered instruction protocol, well, then you do make sure that those folks are well trained in that. So there's lots of puzzles going on there, lots of bits of the puzzle that happens in those situations. But I appreciate that question because gen ed teachers, like you said, want to help, and they just don't necessarily they don't understand, or they don't know how to help. And that's kind of like I wanted to give that as an overall sort of idea thing to let you know, observation. But the other thing I wanted to tell you is that IDRA does have available the online course to give them to give teachers the basics of online EL pedagogy. We do have also an online course for PSYOP for sheltered instruction protocol, but I really would suggest that everybody take that. We have it as a 14-hour course, and teachers. It's asynchronous. They can go in and look at it on their own time, and it does include everything about the crashens and come-ins and all of the 4 quadrants, all of those issues that are very important in pedagogy. And granted, those are foundational seminal work. There's lots of things that have happened since then, but I also feel that if teachers don't have that foundational seminal work, they're kind of, flying by the seat of their pants without knowing that. So yeah, if contact me, and I can let you know how that works as well. Thank you. So I'm showing you here. I'm sharing my screen. We have this product, so to speak, and now this one is not something that the EAC doesn't. The EAC can provide this under very specific circumstances, but we normally, this is actually something that we usually sell. And what we did is we created a set of books that's 10 big books. It's for the early childhood set that they have a curriculum assigned with it. They have there's just some really beautiful graphics, storytelling, and it's all and it's done kind of in a way where you have the Spanish on one side, and this is Spanish English, Spanish on one side and English on the other. These books have been used throughout South Texas. The curriculum that's involved also has lessons for every single one of the books. Let me see if right now the books are up. And I hesitated that. Oh, here they are, the 10 big books. Because we had tried to add a video and it was acting weird earlier today. But here's, I'm not going to play the video, just going to see these pictures. We have these 10 books here. And these 10 books are Jesucita and the Spiders, Jorge el Minero, George the Miner, Machaca la Chamaca. We have all of these. They're adorable, I have to say. I was involved in the writing of some of these. So it's very, very cute. Not only very cute,
sorry.
No problem. They also have shortened storybooks. We have the big books, as you know. Any of you have taught early childhood education know that you have the really large books, and here we have these smaller books, storybooks that have more language. They're for a little bit about a year higher than they could be used in late first grade and second grade, and then we have 15 math books as well. And there you can see them there. I will send the link in the chat. There you go. And you can take a look at that and see if you're interested, and you can talk to us about acquiring those. Okay, it's about to be 1 o'clock, and you guys have been at this this entire time. Some people are coming in and out, and I would like before you go on to your next session, I'd like to take a 5-minute bio break for you guys, and then we come back and we'll wrap things up before it's time to go to our next session.
I just have a quick comment.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just sent it there. In my school, there are some schools in the county that do bilingual, but most of the schools are not bilingual anymore. When I first started out, I taught kids who were there were no English language speaker in the class.
Mm-hmm.
And we used the ELL strategies. Now, all the kids are using the same strategies per se, but there are no English, well, I would say, like, in my school, there are more Haitian Creole students, but they're all taught in English. Nobody speaks Creole.
And where is this? If
it's in Orlando, Orange County Public Schools.
Wow.
Yeah, it's general ed. It's none of the bilingual anymore.
That's a very difficult situation. and I'm surprised because of because that's not supposed to happen. That's
No.
really not supposed to happen at all. That's there would have to be some very big. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. That's very close to being problematic. No, actually, it is quite problematic, but it's there's and it's terrible that this is happening in Orlando,
Yes.
because Florida had a long history of
Oh,
bilingual education.
I know. I'm aware of that. That's why I'm very,
Yeah, shocked.
everything is done in English. And we have, I mean, I would say 75% of our students are second language, English speaking.
Hmm.
They come to us. And I thought, when I first started, I taught kindergarten, where I taught the kids in English. And I will tell you that it was a very successful year for me, because the kids at the end of the year, they spoke and wrote English language very fluently. So I can see it being in the early years, but if a child comes into fourth grade and has to do tests and all of that in English, it's very hard for them.
Yeah,
So
it's actually it's very close to being a violation of civil right.
I don't know
Um,
if there is anything in place for it. If the county has, different rules, different laws, I'm not sure, but I was just making a comment.
yeah, no, it shouldn't. They should all basically they should be receiving some of it. This is it's not a that's not a that's a terrible situation. If you're able to just send me a message afterwards.
I mean, we do have certain schools that are dual language. They teach certain subjects in English and Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Spanish is the only one, because they tried to do the dual language in Creole, but there aren't many books with Creole.
Mm-hmm.
Because me and another teacher, we were sent to several seminars, but the books were all basically French. And
That's
the
not
Haitian
real. Yeah.
Creole kids cannot read French. They only speak and read Creole. So there was a problem that we could not do the dual language in Creole and English. So we reverted back to just English. I'm not sure now. This was about maybe 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's regardless of the situation, there needs to be a sensible accommodation. There just needs to be a sensible accommodation.
well,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, but there are accommodations for these kids, but for the FSA, the state tests, they read the questions, but it's that's not the choices aren't given in Creole. So it's one thing or the other, but I'm just a teacher.
Yes, well, that's hardly. Yeah, no, just a teacher doesn't mean that you don't know what you're taught, what's necessary. Like I said, email me.
Okay,
I'll send my email. I'll put it right here so we can discuss this.
thank
This
you.
is. I just put it right there, and I can't believe
Okay.
our time is up.
All
I
right.
just,
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you so much. I was going to give you all a bio break because I felt sorry for you. A bio break, but we'll continue these conversations.
Yes.
You have my emails there, but thank you so much, and I hope that y'all are able to take some of these things back and call us when you need assistance. And we certainly will be able to help. And again, the folks, Mr. Hernandez, Dr. Green, Ms. Villarreal, and all the people who spoke up, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And make sure to call us up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.